3 in the morning. The house was dead silent, save for the rhythmic hum of the refrigerator. Then, the phone on the nightstand screamed. A sharp, digital chirp sliced through the dark. Mark reached out, his fingers fumbling against the cold glass of the screen. He tapped the notification. The display flared, casting a harsh blue glow across his face. A grainy black and white feed loaded. It showed the driveway. A figure moved into the frame, boots crunching on the gravel. A delivery driver. The man walked with his head down, clutching a package, moving toward the front porch. Mark sat up, his back pressing against the headboard. The driver stopped, set the box down, and turned back toward the shadows. Mark watched the screen, his thumb hovering over the glass. The silence of the house felt heavier now, charged with the flicker of the feed. He was the watcher in the dark, and the night was no longer empty. Mark pressed his thumb against the screen, sliding it to zoom. The image pixelated, then sharpened as the software processed the feed. He focused on the driver's face, tracing the contours of the jaw and the set of the mouth. The phone vibrated slightly in his palm. A thin, glowing box materialized around the man's eyes, locking onto his features with surgical precision. Mark waited. The software scanned its internal library, comparing the geometry of the face against millions of stored profiles. A progress bar ticked across the bottom of the display. Then, the text box snapped into place. It read, "Match found, unknown." Mark exhaled, the sound thin in the quiet room. The label felt final. It stripped the man of his name, his history, and his purpose, leaving only a void where a person should be. The driver was no longer a human being walking through the night. He was a variable, The tag hovered over the man's eyes, a persistent digital reminder of his lack of identity. Mark stared at the screen, his thumb tracing the edge of the share button. He did not know this person, and that was enough to justify the action. He tapped the icon. A menu slid up from the bottom of the display. He selected Share to Neighborhood and confirmed the prompt. A progress wheel spun for a heartbeat, then vanished. The clip was gone from his private view and broadcasted into the local feed. Across the neighborhood, other phones began to light up in dark bedrooms. The footage was now public, stripped of its context and served as a warning to anyone watching. Mark watched the comment counter tick upward. 1 view, 3 views. A neighbor posted a question. "Does anyone recognize this guy?" Another replied with a thumbs down emoji. The suspicion was no longer his alone. It had become a shared concern. He leaned back, watching the notifications pile up. The man in the driveway was now a ghost haunting the digital space of the entire street. Mark felt a surge of validation. The cycle of alert and reaction was complete. Mark did not put the phone down. Instead, he refreshed the feed, eyes scanning for the next anomaly. He found it within seconds. A delivery person leaving a package at the wrong house, then a jogger pausing to tie a shoe. He flagged both. The interface rewarded his vigilance with a small green checkmark for each submission. He felt the weight of the device in his hand, a tool of control that made the dark street outside feel manageable. He did not see the background processes running on his phone, the silent packets of data streaming out of his device and into a massive, interconnected database. To him, this was about safety, about keeping his family secure behind a wall of digital vigilance. He tapped again, flagging a car that slowed down near the corner. The screen flickered, processing the request, and then confirmed the upload. He was building a map, a record of every movement in his vicinity, yet he viewed it only as a ledger of his own civic duty. He did not notice the map of his neighborhood slowly turning into a digital cage. Miles away from the quiet suburban street, the atmosphere changed. A patrol car rolled through the park at a crawl, its tires crunching over loose gravel. The officer inside did not look at the trees or the empty benches. His eyes remained fixed on the road ahead, where the streetlights stood like sentinels. Mounted to the top of one pole, a small dark lens rotated, with a mechanical hum. It tracked the movement of a sedan drifting toward the park exit. As the vehicle passed, the camera lens adjusted its focus, capturing the reflective surface of the license plate. The data did not linger in the air. It traveled instantly through a fiber optic link, converting the metal plate into a string of binary code. The officer tapped the dashboard screen, his fingers moving with practiced efficiency. He was not looking for a specific crime, he was looking for a pattern. The park, once a space for aimless wandering, had become a grid of monitored coordinates. Every turn the sedan made was logged, time-stamped, and stored in a file that would outlive the trip itself. The park was no longer a public commons, but a data collection zone. The license plate data vanished from the camera lens and reappeared on the server racks at the precinct. This was the Flock Safety Network, a silent architecture that turned every intersection into a checkpoint. The information did not wait for a human operator to review it. It moved through the local police servers with the speed of a pulse, instantly updating the master log of movement patterns across the city. Every vehicle that passed the park was now a coordinate in a growing, permanent record. The officer watched the screen as the system ingested the plate, automatically mapping the vehicle's route against historical data points. It was a closed loop. The camera on the pole fed the server, and the server fed the patrol car's dashboard, creating a continuous stream of actionable intelligence. The system tracked the velocity, the time of day, and the frequency of the route, building a profile of the driver's habits without their knowledge. The infrastructure was bolted to the streetlights, hidden in plain sight, and synchronized with the very tools used to enforce the law. The park was merely one node. The blue glow of the dashboard display flickered and died, replaced instantly by a sharp, rhythmic red pulse. A vehicle had entered the zone, and the system had triggered an immediate match. The officer leaned forward, his hands tightening on the steering wheel. As the screen populated with data, a photograph of the driver appeared alongside a string of identifiers: current speed, vehicle make, and a list of locations visited. Over the past week, there was no request for a warrant, no delay for judicial review, and no human oversight required. The algorithm had already cross-referenced the plate against a central database of persons of interest. It was a silent, automated accusation. The officer tapped the screen, and a map zoomed in to show the vehicle's precise current coordinates, marked with a pulsing red dot. He did not need to ask for authorization. The system had already determined the target was relevant. He shifted the patrol car into gear, the engine revving. As he pulled away from the curb, the efficiency was absolute. The machine had identified the driver, verified the threat, and directed the response. The patrol car disappeared around the corner, but the logic of the system remained behind, etched into the architecture of the street. Privacy had ceased to be a static right, a boundary that protected the individual from the state. Instead, it had become a variable, a fluid asset that shifted its value based on who held the lens. If a private citizen owned the camera, the data belonged to the platform. If the police held the subscription, the data belonged to the precinct. The boundary between public space and private property had dissolved into a series of access permissions. A homeowner could grant law enforcement a direct feed, effectively privatizing the surveillance of the sidewalk. The individual walking past a house was no longer a person in a public square. They were a data point captured by a device, with its own set of terms and conditions. The law no longer governed the act of watching. The software license did. This was the new hierarchy of visibility. The right to move through the world without being logged was now a privilege granted by the camera owner, not a guarantee provided by the state. While the public gaze remains fixed on the latest wave of generative art and AI chatbots, the real architecture of control is being installed in plain sight. Millions of eyes are glued to screens, debating the ethics of synthetic images and automated text, oblivious to the metal being bolted to the streetlights above their heads. The distraction is total. Every hour, a new software update or a viral trend captures the collective attention, pulling focus toward the digital horizon. Meanwhile, the physical world is being rewired. Technicians climb ladders to secure high-definition sensors to utility poles, threading fiber optic cables through existing electrical conduits. These devices are not hidden. They are integrated into the very infrastructure of the city, camouflaged by their ubiquity. They blend into the gray steel of the poles and the hum of the street lamps, becoming part of the background noise of urban life. The hardware does not require a press release or a public debate to function. It simply waits, powered by the grid, scanning the pavement below with unblinking precision. By the time the conversation shifts back to the physical environment, the installation is already complete. We are looking at the screen, but the street is looking at us. The focus of the surveillance network shifts from the utility pole to the front door. Amazon's Ring has successfully turned the residential porch into a critical sensor node. What was marketed as a tool for convenience, a way to screen visitors or catch package thieves, has been repurposed into a permanent observation post. Each unit acts as a localized sensor, capturing high-definition video of everyone who approaches the threshold. The device does not merely record, it transmits. This domestic data stream is no longer contained within the household. Law enforcement agencies have become the primary consumers of this information, bypassing the need for traditional investigative legwork. A police department can now issue a bulk request, pulling footage from every porch in a 3-block radius with a single command. The homeowner provides the hardware, pays for the electricity, and maintains the connection, while the state reaps the intelligence. This creates a distributed network of eyes that never blink and never sleep. The front porch is no longer a private entry point. It is a node in a massive, interconnected grid. Every delivery, every neighborly visit, and every passerby is logged, time-stamped, and archived. The domestic space has been effectively annexed by the surveillance apparatus, turning the act of coming home into a data-generating event for the authorities. The convenience of the notification has become the mechanism of the capture. The surveillance grid is evolving beyond simple motion detection. The new frontier is the identification of familiar faces, a technology that transforms every recorded individual into a searchable data point. The system no longer just asks who is at the door, it asks who they are, who they know, and how often they return. Algorithms process these video feeds to build a comprehensive map of social circles. When a face is captured, the software cross-references it against a growing database of known identities. It tracks the frequency of visits, the duration of stays, and the specific connections between individuals. A visitor is not just a person, they are a node in a complex, interconnected web of relationships. The system logs the pattern of these interactions, identifying the strength of social bonds through the regularity of physical proximity. This biometric mapping creates a permanent, digital record of human association. The technology does not require a central command center to function. It operates through the decentralized network of private devices. Every camera acts as a sensor for this social graph, feeding information into a system that renders anonymity obsolete. The network is no longer just watching the street. It is documenting the social fabric of the community. The surveillance apparatus now targets the mundane rhythms of daily existence. A teenager walking home from school is no longer just a student on a sidewalk. They are a data point, their path logged, and their arrival time recorded with mathematical precision. The system monitors the consistency of this route, flagging any deviation as a potential anomaly. Every step is a time-stamped coordinate in a growing digital ledger. The reach of this tracking extends to the most private social interactions. When a neighbor walks across the street to visit a friend, the cameras do not see a social gesture. They see a pattern of life entry. The software calculates the frequency of these visits, the time of day, and the duration of the encounter, building a profile of the relationship based on physical proximity. This is the new reality of domestic surveillance. The personal has become the measurable. There is no distinction between a public thoroughfare and a private driveway. The algorithm treats the teenager's walk and the neighbor's visit as raw material for its predictive models. By quantifying these intimate movements, the system strips away the last vestiges of individual autonomy. Every interaction is parsed, categorized, and stored. The true power of this surveillance grid lies in its lack of a central command center. There is no single room filled with screens, no master server room that could be bypassed or dismantled. Instead, the infrastructure is a decentralized web of millions of private cameras, each functioning as an autonomous sensor node. These devices are bolted to streetlights, integrated into doorbells, and mounted on porches, creating a vast, invisible net that covers every square inch of the neighborhood. The state does not need to build this network. It has successfully outsourced the installation to the public. Every private citizen who buys a camera becomes a voluntary agent of the state, extending the reach of law enforcement into the most private corners of the community. This is not a top-down mandate, but a bottom-up integration of private property into a public surveillance apparatus. When millions of cameras act in concert, they form a seamless, state-linked ledger that operates without a single point of failure. The system is resilient because it is distributed. It relies on the collective participation of neighbors. When a crime occurs, the era of the traditional investigation ends instantly. Detectives no longer walk the streets, knock on doors, or interview witnesses to reconstruct a timeline. They sit at a console and initiate a digital dragnet. With a single command, the police blast a request for footage to every device within a 3-block radius. The response is immediate and automated. Within seconds, a flood of high-definition clips pours into the server, covering every angle of the incident from multiple perspectives. The investigation is no longer a search for truth. It is a data processing task. The algorithm sorts through the incoming footage, cross-referencing timestamps and identifying faces before a human officer even views the first frame. This process eliminates the need for warrants, subpoenas, or the slow, methodical gathering of evidence. The dragnet captures everything. The innocent bystander, the late-night delivery, the neighbor taking out the trash. Every device becomes a remote-controlled witness, compelled by the system to surrender its visual history. The investigation is over before the crime scene tape has even been unrolled. The request for footage is not a suggestion. It is a test of community loyalty. When a device owner hesitates or attempts to toggle the privacy setting, the system flags the refusal. The neighborhood group chat lights up with questions. Why are you hiding the footage? What are you trying to protect? The pressure begins in the digital space, but it quickly spills onto the sidewalk. Neighbors stop waving. They whisper as you walk by. The social cost of opting out is designed to be unbearable. If you refuse to comply, you are no longer just a neighbor. You are an obstacle to the collective safety. People you have known for years begin to view your privacy as a threat to their own security. You share the clip, not because you want to, but because the alternative is isolation. The sky outside begins to lighten, turning the dark driveway into a gray, featureless slab. Mark sits upright, his eyes fixed on the small, glowing rectangle in his palm. He taps the screen 3 times in rapid succession. 3 more faces are captured, processed, and uploaded to the neighborhood feed. Each notification confirms the action. Flagged. He watches the progress bar fill, satisfied by the immediate feedback. To him, the screen is a shield. He believes he is filtering the world, keeping the unwanted elements away from his front door. He scans the footage of a jogger passing by, then a neighbor walking a dog, and finally a delivery person dropping a package. He flags them all. Every movement is a potential threat, and every notification is a victory for his home security. He sets the phone down on the table, feeling the weight of a job well done. He imagines the neighborhood quiet, orderly, and watched. The world is finally under control. Look at the map of the neighborhood now. It is no longer a collection of streets and private homes. It is a glowing, interconnected grid of sensors. Every doorbell camera, every motion-activated floodlight, and every smart lock has become a node in a singular, massive structure. The lines between properties have vanished, replaced by a seamless web of coverage. When a single sensor triggers, the entire network pulses. A movement on one corner alerts the next, creating a chain reaction that tracks a person from block to block. The trap is not a physical wall. It is a digital perimeter that never sleeps. Every doorbell is a witness, recording, logging, and broadcasting the passage of every soul. There are no blind spots left. The sidewalk, once a place of public transit, is now a conveyor belt of data points. Mark and his neighbors have built this cage piece by piece, paying for the hardware and installing the software themselves. They have turned their own front porches into guard posts. The system does not need a central command to function. It operates on the collective participation of those trapped inside. The cage is complete, and the lock is engaged. Consider the sidewalk. Once, it was a neutral ground where a person could walk without leaving a permanent record of their existence. It was a space of anonymity, where a stranger remained a stranger. Now, that space has been reclaimed by the lens. We have traded that silence for the chime of a notification. We have swapped the freedom of being unobserved for the immediate digital confirmation of who is at our door. This is the fatal trade. We did not lose our privacy to a grand invading force. We dismantled it ourselves, one purchase at a time. Every doorbell camera installed is a brick in the wall of our own confinement. We reach for our phones to check the feed, seeking the comfort of knowing, and in that moment, we surrender the right to be unknown. The tragedy is not that we are being watched, but that we have become the primary architects of our own observation. We have prioritized the convenience of a screen over the fundamental human need for a life lived outside the gaze of a machine. The sidewalk is no longer a public thoroughfare. It is a data collection zone, and we are the ones who paid to turn it into a cage. The Panopticon is finished. It stands not as a monument of stone, but as a silent, invisible network woven into the very fabric of the street. The most chilling irony remains. We paid for the installation ourselves. We signed the contracts, we mounted the sensors, and we connected the power. Every light on the porch, every lens pointed at the road, serves the machine. There are no secrets left to keep. The data flows, the algorithms categorize, and the record remains permanent. The screen flickers one last time, showing an empty street, and then goes black. The watchman is off duty, but the system never sleeps. The gaze remains fixed, unblinking, and absolute.